So what I want to do today is talk about some things that I think it's unfortunate that the way I like to run the class is kind of stay up with current events and kind of address things as they come along. And it's just really can be a bit disheartening when I find myself steering into violence so often. And but I want to take today and frame some things, because in the context of kind of where we're at historically and where we've been and where we're going, I just think it'd be really helpful to frame a few things for you all. So this is one of the flyers from the rally in Charlottesville that was organized by people in the, call it the alt-right, the white nationalist movement. And so you remember, this was just a little over a year ago, and what really prompted this, there were a number of things that prompted this rally, but one, of course, was that the kind of tearing down of Confederate statues in the South, and any number of other issues. The rise, I think, of kind of a new politics, or perceived new politics. But in any event, quite a number of people were very emboldened to come out. And more than really has happened in a long time. And what I want you to notice on this, first off, the Daily Stormer, but I want you to notice that this is not a hooded figure of a KKK member. And what you see on this flyer, the main flyer of this rally, is the Star of David. And I'm going to talk about that. I want to frame that a little bit. And here are some images from that. Here you have the Confederate flag because, of course, that's part of what drew some people together. But, a very large number of people turned out, and we're holding, here's another flag like this over there, and the swastika, and doing the Nazi salute. Just imagining that, like just doing that, right? So, I'm gonna frame some of this for you today about the implications. But when I see that, I'm just aghast that a human being could do that at all in after the 20th century. And so here's another Nazi flag, and this young guy carrying that. And this is from the Stormer, from their website. I just kind of grabbed it because the merchandise may vary from time to time, but the merchant's always the same. And of course, that's a character of a Jewish person. And these are all flags. These are all neo-Nazi fascist flags. This is one actually from someone had this at the alt-right. That's actually from South Africa, the top one. And so you see this kind of neo-Nazi fascist movement all over the world. So for white nationalists, white genocide is the key word. And for white nationalists, white nationalists are most afraid of Jews. So the vitriolic hate goes out more against Jews than anybody else. So they also hate blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans, any indigenous people, Asians. Doesn't really matter at that level. But the deepest hate is against Jews. And the reason for that is these other groups, they're not really that dangerous, because white people, a purified white people, a strong white people that have not been weakened by any policies anywhere, a strong white people can handle black people, Hispanic people, Asian people. It's not really a threat. White people can overpower them, but Jews are smart, according to the white nationalists. Jews, which are sometimes seen as white, but most often not, because it's kind of difficult, right? Because many Jewish people identify as white, and so, but for these folks, but they're not pure white people. So for the white nationalists, Jews are the most scary, because they're identified as, historically speaking, just like that image, as being crafty, punny and cunning and like really have this long-term plan to take over the world. And I'm going to talk about how far back this goes. But the idea is that Jewish people have a long-term plan to take over the world. And according to the white nationalists, the key plan in the United States is to support multiculturalism. So the more you can weaken the bloodline, the more you can weaken white people, and in particular white people's resolve to have a nation that is run by white people, the fittest of all people, the smartest of all people, the purest of all people, the more you can have a nation where that gets weakened, then who's going to win? According to these folks, Jewish people. Because Jewish people are just playing this big chess game. So let's bring multiculturalism to the United States. And let's let all of these black and brown people weaken things. And then we'll just keep operating behind the scenes. It's always the hidden, unseen threat. Just like this image here. Behind, the merchandise may vary, but the merchant's always the same. And behind him are all of these things. The open border, gender bending, whatever it is. So the issue becomes, this is the ideology. And notice this white nationalism. It's not white supremacy. That has changed in the past 20 years. The folks on the extreme right don't talk about white supremacy. They talk about white nationalism because white nationalism is a way to get a foothold. So think about much of the language of somebody like Donald Trump talking about the caravan coming up from Mexico. And think about how that's discussed. Think about the words that are used, that he uses, and others are using to describe them. They're going to come up here, they're invading. These are the invaders coming. This is like a disease that's coming to weaken the United States. This is the thinking of the white nationalists. So while Trump is not in any way a white nationalist, he doesn't identify with them, and it's really wrong. If you're making that identification, I think you're doing a deep disservice, because that's not what's going on here. But he's playing into the fold of this, so that white nationalism, lots of people, very few people can get on board with the idea that white people are biologically superior. But lots of people can get on board that says, all those people invading this country, coming up from down south, the poor people, the criminals, the one after another, those people, that's actually a threat to our way of life. That's not racist. A threat to our way of life in the minds of many, many people. Millions and millions of Americans. Now, for those millions of Americans then to turn around and identify down here as white nationalists, that's a different story. That takes more. But the question becomes, how much more? How much more? So Robert Bowers is the guy that committed the criminal acts that murdered all of the Jewish people in the synagogue. This was one of his last tweets. It was his last post on Gab. The filthy, evil Jews are bringing the filthy, evil Muslims into the country. Because he's listening to the rhetoric or the ideas of people in the administration saying inside of this group of people coming from Mexico are Muslims. And members of ISIS and whatever, who knows what. The filthy evil Jews are bringing the filthy evil Muslims into the country. This is his very last tweet, right here. Hias likes to bring invaders. And, by the way, in Hias is the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, Immigration Aid Society. Hias likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics, I'm going in. That's the last thing he posted before he committed the killings.